Poland stuff here on Darren Till, and then we're actually going to make some picks on Sao Paulo and then get back to the Poland recap. But let's start with the gorilla, Darren Till. It is Till time, ladies and gentlemen. This is a fighter who some suggested maybe wasn't worthy of this opportunity. The betting line told you that there was a very close fight on paper. And Darren Till certainly maximizes the showcase here, Kenny. He remains undefeated, gets the biggest win of his career, and gets UFC President Dana White to call him the future. That's about as much as you can ask for going into a fight. And Darren Till, obviously the big news here on Monday morning.
He absolutely made the best of it. This was a performance that really you couldn't script better. This is a guy who went out, did exactly what he needed to do against Donald Cerrone. He made it a boxing fight for the most part, got right in his face. He backed him up repeatedly. When you back up a great kicker like a Donald Cerrone, you shut down a lot of his offense. I think Darren Till knew that heading into this. I knew he had the skills to win. I wasn't sure if he had the experience to really pull it off. He proved us all wrong. Not only did he go out there and dominate Donald Cerrone, breaking his nose in the process, he maybe got hit like 3 times in that fight, and it was all really kicks. He didn't get hit to the face once. It was a very clean performance. And he showed that he's the real deal, man. This is a guy that everyone should be watching. He even got us excited about his next fight that's not even made, but it potentially could be. Him and Mike Perry going at it, I thought was just awesome. A nice cherry on the top of the cake of that win. And, you know, Darren Till, man, just phenomenal.
Platinum Mike Perry in Poland as a guest fighter. Not sure if that was a forethought of the UFC to have him there and potentially build a fight with Darren Till. But sometimes when these guest fighters in the same division are there, some friction can happen during fight week. I don't know if there was any of that before fight night. But, yeah, I mean, certainly Platinum Mike Perry has a fight with Santiago Ponzinibbio that is no picnic. But maybe there's a fight with Darren Till next. Till has said he wants some time off and certainly has earned it. Quick turnaround after the Rotterdam win September 2nd and now dispatches Donald Cowboy Cerrone, who is 0-3 in 2017. So big picture on where, excuse me, Donald Cerrone goes from here. Kenny, this is a guy who at one point I thought would retire as the UFC's all-time wins leader, if not all-time appearances leader, right? There was a time when he was super active. 4 fights in 2013, 4 in 2014, 4 in 2015, 4 more in 2016, 3 this year. The appearances thing, you always thought this might be the first fighter to 50 UFC fights. But then the wins started to pile up, and you thought, this guy might retire as the all-time wins leader in the UFC. But I think now, on the heels of this 3rd successive loss in 2017, whether it's my argument or someone else's, I think you can argue now that this schedule has finally caught up to Donald Cerrone. I'm not trying to take anything away from Darren Till, but don't you think at this point in time you can make the argument that a 34-year-old Donald Cerrone, those miles are catching up with him?
Well, I think there's some truth to that. However, you got to look at the competition that he's faced, right? I mean, his first loss was Masvidal, right? Was
in this 3-fight streak?
Yeah,
is that what you're saying?
Yeah. It was Masvidal, then Lawler, which was super close, could have gone either way. And then it was Darren Till. All really bad matchups for him. And Donald Cerrone's the kind of guy who, it doesn't matter who. I mean, he'll fight the heavyweight champ Stipe Miocic if he needed to. But he needs to start looking at the style matchups, I think, or his management, whatever it is. That's not Donald Cerrone's style. I don't expect him to do that. But when you look at the style of another fighter, those just aren't really good matchups for Donald Cerrone. Those are all guys who are awesome boxers that are pressure-style figers. And I don't think that was the right fight for him here against Darren Till. He had everything to lose in this fight. We talked about this. And Darren Till is just damn good. I mean, is it a good thing to stay this active against high-level competition? Probably not. So I think in that you're right, but also the style of fights that he's taking, the style of fighters that he's facing, I think isn't really conducive to get yourself a lot of wins.
And I always say I'm not in the business of retiring fighters, and I'm certainly not trying to retire Donald Cerrone, understanding fully the strength of schedule and the results. I just feel like maybe in terms of the chin or the ability to absorb shots, forever it was, pound Cerrone's body, and now Till had great success upstairs. I just think big picture for Donald Cerrone, I don't know if time off will be the elixir. But Kenny, the fights aren't going to get easier, right?
No.
I mean, so maybe he gets like the Damian Maia, Colby Covington loser, or if he maybe Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, should he lose to Jorge Masvidal.
Jeez.
But I wouldn't imagine, right? I mean, there's a bunch of killers out there. So I just wonder if Cerrone's days as contender at 170, which he was thought to be, might be over.
Maybe the idea is going back to 155. Facing a guy like Darren Till, who said he gets up as high as 210 pounds, which is ridiculous. The reason they call him the gorilla. But I mean, there was a huge size discrepancy. When you get on the scale, you look at him on the scale when they weighed in, there wasn't a big difference. But then on fight night, it was just a whole different deal. It was like, I remember when I weighed in against Sean Shirk on the scale, I looked at him like, oh, he's not that big. It's fine. I'll be fine. And then the next night, when I saw him in the octagon, I wanted to run out of the cage. So, people change, man. You look at a guy like Darren Till, who really is a natural welterweight, maybe even a natural middleweight as he gets older. There was just a huge size difference.
26 fights in the UFC for Donald Cerrone, 10 more in the WEC, 3 of which were championship fights. He has been the consummate workhorse for the UFC, and I think that really might help his Hall of Fame candidacy. So Donald Cerrone taking on all comers as usual, but the big story in this one, the gorilla Darren Till, and as Colby Covington said, he went from being a complete nobody to just a nobody. So Colby Covington, man, we will get to him shortly here coming up in the main event challenge. All right, we're going to bring on Justin Flores here in a couple minutes, but I just want to get your thoughts on a few other items on the UFC Poland show. And TJ, you can call Justin anytime, and we'll take him whenever he is ready. So Jan Blachowicz defeats Devin Clark. I know this is a disappointing result for Devin Clark and a fighter who a lot of people think has a high ceiling in his own right. But Jan Blachowicz here in front of his Polish fans. Kenny, what are we calling this? A bulldog choke? A rear naked choke? Talk me through it. If you saw it. I don't even know if you saw it.
Yeah, kind of a bulldog choke. Devin Clark got a little aggressive, gave up the angle there to Blachowicz, and he went for that choke right away. It was a smart decision. And Devin just, again, it just showed how vulnerable you are when you give up your neck from any position. And essentially it was that rear naked kind of bulldog choke from the side. Didn't really have to throw any hooks in. And Devin Clark just a little too aggressive there. And he was tired as well. He shot in, didn't have the best posture. Blachowicz did a great job of kind of circling away from the fence and caught him, man. What a win for him in his home country.
Couple other things on this UFC Poland show that I just wanted to get your thoughts on, Ken Flo, on the way out here. I don't know how many of these fights you saw or didn't see on UFC Fight Pass, so I'm just going to go rapid fire on some of these names. Talk about whoever you want to. So Karolina Kowalkiewicz, very emotional moment for her in a dominant effort against the UFC newcomer Jodie Esquibel. Boom. Brian Boom Kelleher finishes Damian Stasiak. That was deemed the fight of the night. And that's the guy who I want to shout out here, Kenny. So here's Brian Kelleher, another one of these 35ers that feels like on his best night, not unlike Cody Stamann or some of these guys who aren't ranked. They feel like they are the best bantamweight in the world. And what Brian Kelleher has done here, he made his UFC debut on short notice in June, performance bonus against Yuri Alcantara. Then he was humbled a little bit by Chito Vera in July. Turns around here, fight of the night victory. So here he is, 3 UFC fights in basically as many months on the roster, and 2 performance bonuses, or 2 $50,000 bonuses. So I just like seeing these guys that wait and bide their time to get in the big show, get in and make a nice salary, at least for this calendar year for Brian Kelleher. So I wanted to shout him out before we got out of here.
Yeah, and I know you're impressed if you're shouting out a New Yorker, so that's cool.
That is true.
Kelleher, I mean, this guy's a fighter, man. I like watching him fight. Kowalkiewicz, I thought had an excellent performance. She's back on track. And again, we talked about it, but the range, the reach really was the difference there against Jodie Esquibel, who just couldn't find a way to get on the inside. Kowalkiewicz was patient, kind of picked her apart from the outside, and got a solid win there.
Also a big weekend for Team Alpha Male, Ken Flo. Andre Feely, I don't know if you saw it. I thought it looked really good. Unanimous decision nod over Artem Lobov. Did everything in his power to try to get Lobov out of there.